immaterial figures. What we need to do is to control your fertilizer subsidy, your power that is spent without taking any any charges from the entire agricultural sector, the TND losses that amount to 40% of the total generation. I mean, and there are a huge amount of bureaucracy, the bloated bureaucracies, the wasteful expenditure in this whole paraphernalia.
No, that's a very good point. Let me put that to Mr. Subhash Agarwal. Let me put that to Mr. Subhash Agarwal, who is the person who is filing all these RTIs, and Rajiv Kumar is asking where I'm getting these figures from. I'm getting them from Mr. Subhash Agarwal, who is painstakingly filing RTI after RTI and coming up with all these figures. What Mr. Rajiv Kumar is saying is that these figures are actually quite small figures, 200 crore, 10 crore, 3.2 crore, even as you say, the President's fleet review cost 23 crore. That's your latest revelation which you've come out today. Given actually austerity should be, we shouldn't target these figures, we should look at the larger picture, subsidies, government expenditure, government wasteful expenditure in welfare schemes. Those are where the big wastage is, not in these small foreign trips.
No, these are also necessary to be controlled, because our political rulers should be exemplary role models for the citizens. Shabana Azmi, went to attend the last session of Rajya Sabha, she vacated the government accommodation. She said, I have no right to come to this bungalow again. But our politicians are not vacating bungalows, they are occupying. And what is the result? We have to pay ITDC hotels for stay of new parliamentarians, and then what happens when they are getting bungalows allotted, and even then they are not vacating ITDC hotels. These are not. This is not good. They should be exemplary role model.
Yeah, come in, Mr. Yes, Mr. Kumar.
Just one second. I mean, of course, our leaders have to be exemplars and model citizens. Agreed. But look at just one figure. The state utilities, electricity utilities today have a debt of 1 lakh crores, and we have pumped in 40,000 crore in Air India losses, and we're going to do another 30,000 crore here. Now, aren't those the much bigger?
That's a good point.
These are also to be controlled. But
that's a very good point. Suhail, respond to that. Given the huge bleeding white elephant of Air India, are we focusing on the wrong things?
I completely agree with Subhash. You have to create examples. You have to lead by example. Haven't they heard of this phrase, leadership by example? Number one. Number two, why are these fertilizer subsidies given? Why are TND losses tolerated? Why are SOPs given? For their own immediate political expediency and resurrection. This country cannot be held ransom to every goddamn political party's whims and fancies.
But by talking about those other things, you get distracted.
Rajiv, will you allow me to finish? I didn't interrupt.
Okay, no, Suhail, hold that thought. So,
I know, one minute, I know where chambers of commerce are coming from, but for once, let the politician and the political parties together be accountable for courteous, decent, transparent behavior. That's all people are asking. Citizen anger is based on exactly the point that Paranjoy mentioned. You can't have hypocrisy when you actually are well-meaning, and I hope and pray to God that the government is well-meaning. But it's got to be demonstrable.
It's got to demonstrate well-meaning. It's got to demonstrate its well-meaning. Let's take a short break at that point and come back and pick it up right where we left off. Welcome back to Face the Nation. We're discussing austerity on a day when an oil shock has been administered on petrol consumers. A whopping 7.5 rupee hike in the price of petrol. But on the other hand, our political leaders are travelling abroad at mammoth expenses. This is double standards on the part of the government when it comes to austerity. Paranjoy Gothakurta, let me read out the tweet that I've got from somebody called Onirban Chaudhary, who says, fiscal deficit and therefore rupee depreciation isn't due to Montek Singh Ahluwalia or Pratibha Patil's travels, but due to large unwieldy welfare schemes.
I think it's very fashionable to talk about these things. I mean, look, National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, you know, your child
the
development.
wastage,
One
the
minute,
leakage, the underspending.
1 minute, Shagurika. Let me finish my argument. What Mr. Rajiv Kumar is saying is not incorrect. I mean, the huge losses taking place on account of transmission and distribution losses. The T&D losses should be called theft and dacoity losses. This is loss of power. We agree. There's a huge amount of loot that is happening. So Suhail said, talked about natural resources. Look at the way natural resources have been given out, you know, to cronies, you know, not in a fair manner. You read the CAG's report, you know, it's been fashionable to bash the CAG. It's clearly documented. But the point is, just because there's a huge amount of loot taking place, it doesn't mean that you can support even the 10 crores and the 20 crores and the 100 crores that is being, you know, spent by some of our netas and some of our babus who think they have some sort of a divine right to spend money that belongs to the people of this country. What Mr. Agarwal's RTI queries are showing is that there is a complete brazenness in the manner in which some of our political leaders and some of our bureaucrats and babus are spending money. And Mr. Rajiv Kumar knows his in FICCI, the members of FICCI and the corporate sector, they get hundreds of lakhs in the form of tax exemptions and tax foregone, which is given in the budget, but they're cribbing because your Food Security Act will entail a huge subsidy, because to revamp your PDS, your public distribution system, it costs a lot of money. Yeah, sure. I mean, the problem is governance, you know. The problem is, you can say, you know, our kerosene subsidies are not being properly utilized because kerosene is being used, being diverted to adulterate diesel. But what is that? This is an admission that you're unable to govern. You have governments in place, but no governance. You're unable to check that.
Because of your failures of governance, you can't start rolling back your welfare schemes.
No.
Hang on. Yes, no, Suhail, come in.
I also believe, to add to Paranjoy's point, India has been a sailing ship since 1947. The only difference between India and the Titanic is, despite all the leakages, we haven't yet capsized. That's the reality. There's a leakage in every goddamn scheme. The man who you and I venerated, I mean, we didn't venerate, but we saw him in the newspapers, splashed all over, famously once said that of every rupee, only 30 paisa reaches the citizen. So governance is not just
and that was development
accountability
schemes.
Or 15. I'm just using inflation and making it 30 to make everyone happy. Let's say 15.
No, that was
the
a proportion.
point therefore I'm making is, go back to basic economics. You cannot curb expenditure and not hope to increase revenue. You also can't increase revenue in a backdoor way where you actually cause pain. So, Shagurika, I would request you to differentiate between what was said in Parliament about them and what is being done to the citizen today. There's a difference between austerity and pain. What has been caused, or what will be caused from midnight today, will be pain, and we will see the ramifications. So
Mr. Rajiv Kumar, respond to what Paranjoy and Suhail are saying, that the failures of government, the failures of proper implementation of schemes, the leakages, the various wasteful expenditures that are creeping in, the poor petrol consumer or the Indian middle class is being penalized for the government's failures, and therefore prices of this nature are being hiked. This kind of shock has had to be administered.
Yeah, Shagurika, 2 or 3 points. One, I cannot for a minute condone the brazenness or the profligacy or the ostentatious consumption of of anybody, especially on taxpayers' money. That's the first thing. So I'm not trying to do that. The second thing is that about this tax exemption through the concessions that Paranjoy talked about, we have written about it. The long piece trying to explain that particular figure has been just bandied about without any analysis or consideration as to what it includes. It includes a large proportion of taxes which cannot be exported by law, by international and national law. But now on the wasteful and the leakages and the wasteful expenditures and all the schemes, etc., absolutely right. that they should not be done. But tell me for a minute that if all of that was stopped, all of that was properly done, would you still condone?
How much would you say?
The tax? No, you would say whatever you would say, but would you still condone a distortion in the prices,
right,
whereby we guzzle petrol at below the world prices,
right,
and continue to burn it, and just a minute, and at the same time,
a moral argument can't be a substitute for good economics. You can't substitute moralism for good economics.
Right.
But on the other hand, isn't there a hypocrisy about austerity? Let me just bring you in here. Why are you keeping on bringing out these figures? Why are you so convinced that you need to bring out these figures of foreign travel? Why do you think it's important?
It is important to expose the legislative system, which is costing heavily on the taxpayers' money, and the result is there. They are now conscious.
It may be costing the taxpayers money, Suhail said, but on the other hand, we can't get away from the fact, as Rajiv Kumar is saying, that tough economic decisions have to be taken. So whether or not the ruling elite is setting a moral example or not, the fact is these tough economic decisions like petrol shock have to be administered.
But Shagurika, all I'm saying is, and paraphrasing what has been said by other panelists, including Rajiv, is that this is not a sudden discovery. It's not as if the government has woken up on the 23rd of May and discovered, oh my God, our petrol prices are way below global prices. Successive governments, it would be unfair to blame only this, successive governments in this country have destroyed economic soundness at the altar of political expediency. And we are suffering because of their continuous behavior, which is not only errant, it's highly irresponsible.
Right.
So therefore, blame only this government would be unfair.
Right. We're completely out of time.
State level,
you had a last comment.
Look at what Mamata Banerjee has done. We've destroyed it for years.
Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, in his foreword to this white paper on the black economy, says we should all be nice guys. We should all learn to be. The moral fiber of the nation should be strengthened. I mean, I find it laughable.
The hypocrisy.
Look. This is not individual morality. You're dealing with economic systems and structures where there is no transparency and which breeds corruption.
Very quickly.
I have filed a petition against IFCO also, that is pending for decision before the CIC, which is misusing subsidy on fertilizers.
So misusing subsidy on fertilizers, that's your next RTI that's coming out with the Subhash Agarwal, indefatigable, coming out with those RTIs, bringing out those details. Big oil shock today. Austerity measure has been dealt out to the people of India, but on the other hand, are the ruling elite practicing austerity? Are they setting a moral example? Are they penalizing the Indian consumer for their own failures of governance and transparency? Thank you very much indeed, Rajiv Kumar, Suhail Seth, Poranjoy Guha Thakurta, Subhash Agarwal. Thanks very much indeed. Are Indians ready for austerity? What are you telling us there? 60 are saying yes. Well, we have to be tank up because you only have a few hours left to go before those petrol prices hit the ceiling. Thanks for watching.